Junior here at MacMurray in the social work department, and I did my strategic plan on domestic violence victims need better access to legal documents. Financial security is the #1 predictor of whether or not a victim of domestic violence will get free from her abuser and stay free. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. A study was done by the CDC in 2010, and they estimated that in the state of Illinois alone, 1.8 million women will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. Out of that 1.8 million, approximately 4,300 are in Morgan County alone. My needs assessment is financial control of domestic violence survivors is a powerful tactic. Too many times women try to leave their abusers, and they feel compelled to stay with their abusers because of the fact that they don't have the financial means to survive on their own without their abuser's support. And a survivor's access to household income, bank accounts, paychecks, assets, and investments is commonly denied or restricted by the abuser. My goals and objectives is to provide domestic violence victims in Morgan County with adequate access to necessary legal documents for their safety and financial security, and to ensure advocates at the Jacksonville Crisis Center have these documents readily available to their clients. There is a big misconception with the communication between the Crisis Center and the Morgan County Courthouse with the circuit clerk. If you request certain documents from the JCC, they will give you the Illinois Legal Aid website if they don't have the documents, and that website refers you to the circuit clerk, and when you go to the circuit clerk, she refers you right back to the website. And so there's no forms. And in order to get the forms, you have to seek outside counsel, which can range, which will start at $250 an hour. And like I said, a lot of domestic violence victims, when they leave their abuser, they don't have the financial means to even pay a power bill or get food or anything like that. So paying $250 to an attorney is pretty much out of the question. And the steps that I want to take is, together with local family law attorneys, I found 7 family law pro bono attorneys in Jacksonville that I spoke to personally and agreed that if this does take place, they would help in develop a training manual containing all legal documents that would be relevant to domestic violence victims. And this would improve the legal knowledge of the advocates at JCC. It would also supply domestic violence victims with necessary resources to obtain their goals of financial security and most importantly, self-empowerment. And my SWOT analysis on the JCC is their strengths. They have very dedicated and experienced advocates who are always willing to talk to you. They have extensive knowledge and expertise of the services that they are allowed to offer. And they have a very long time community presence since 1984, I believe, yes, 1984. And their networking and relationships in the community is very strong. They have excellent communication skills between the advocates and the clients. They make you feel very welcome when you walk in the door. It's a very safe environment. And they have a big successful track record with their advocates. The weaknesses is a lack of accurate information from the local courthouse, inconsistent communication with potential constituents, I can't say that word, and the cost of filing court documents increases if you choose to file certain documents such as a legal separation, which is $178 to file at the courthouse on your own, and also a temporary order of support, which is the same cost. Neither one of those documents are provided to the JCC so that they can offer them to their clients. The opportunities would be growth of knowledge for not only the advocates, but the domestic violence victims, self-empowerment for domestic violence victims, and definitely financial security for domestic violence victims. And the threats is limited to non-existent financial security for victims, and this can lead to domestic violence victims returning to their abuser because of the lack of funds that they have. And outside financial resources will eventually expire. Like they can go to churches and ask for help, financial help, but churches can only give so much and so often. And food banks only have so much food so many times. So my total grant amount requested is $15,000, and the three major costs is the contract services, which would be with the attorneys. Each one that I spoke to agreed that they would accept a flat fee of $500 in order to obtain these documents and put them together so that the local publisher here in town would be able to put them together. And they would do the printing. The printing would be the most expensive at $10,000 for 5 manuals that would be delivered to the JCC to be shared throughout with all the advocates. And the copying came out to $862.50. And I thought this was very interesting. 74% of survivors stayed with an abusive partner for longer than they wanted to because of financial concerns. And so, for domestic violence victims to become survivors, we must empower them with the will to live and the means to survive. And like it says there, no one should have to choose between being attacked by an abuser and keeping a roof over their head. Any questions?
I'm sorry, what was the $3,500 in contract services for?
That's for the attorneys.
Okay.
The 7 pro bono attorneys in Jacksonville, family law.
If they're pro bono, what's the money for?
They said, each one told me basically the same thing, that it would be they'd have to spend the time to get all the documents together and make sure that they are the relevant ones that victims would need to file.
Okay.
So not completely pro bono, obviously.
Other than the legal separation forms, what other forms would be contributed to the documents? Like
A temporary order of support for financial support for victims. I use myself as an example. My ex-husband doesn't pay child support yet. So I've had to go to a lot of outside resources in order to get the financial means to support my kids over the last few months. And I inquired about filing for a temporary order of support, and my advocate doesn't have the documentation for it, and it's not listed on the Illinois Legal Aid website. It's instructions of how to do it, but they refer you right to the circuit clerk. So when I went to the circuit clerk, she referred me right back to the website. It's a big circle, and it needs to stop. So, anything else?
Yeah, and one last thing. So you have pro bono attorneys, and you have the ability to put together these manuals. What's your role in all of this?
Guiding them, yes.
Are you volunteering?
Yes, I would volunteer for it.
Putting all this together and then
Yes.
bringing it to JCC? And
I would, yes. I think it's very important. I do. I've met other women in my situation, and it's a very exhausting experience and very mentally and emotionally challenging. So I think that the more help that we can provide to victims, then the more empowered they would be.
Great.
Yes.
Thanks.
Mhm.